Tepu, namaste. This is Kisan Keparu here with another broadcast for you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the dark side of possession. So if you're new, welcome to the dark side. My name is Dart Sidious. Just kidding. You know, I was at the supermarket and I was looking for some chocolate ice cream, soy chocolate ice cream, because they used to make it with tofuti. You know, tofuti was a brand that made chocolate ice cream with based on soy milk. And I think they went out of business because I could not find them anymore, you know. And I'm just making small talk so people can come in to the stream here. But so I found this one, and this is a recognized brand, but it's made with almond milk. They have coconut milk and almond milk. I like the almond milk. But I've never, I like almond milk, but I've never tried this one, and I did, and it is delicious, man. I was just like, whoa, you know? So it's almost as good as tofuti. Actually, it's probably a little better. It's very chocolatey. It's very good. And of course, you guys know I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks about the seasonal affective disorder. Of course, when I eat chocolate, it changes my mood. It makes me feel a lot better. And the sun is down, so you know my body chemistry starts to change. I get a little bit more depressed and pessimistic about things in life. But the chocolate ice cream is really helping me. And on that note, there's another interesting thing that happened at the supermarket where I was talking to this woman at the supermarket. But before I get into that, let me just backtrack and tell you a little bit about. So I'm an empath, right? And I didn't realize that until I got a little older, and I came into that understanding late in life. But I remember specifically when my mother used to take me around, I would go to certain places and have visions, and I would feel dizzy, like almost to the point of wanting to pass out. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something supernatural. I knew that, you know. And then when I started reading more about astrology and Pisces and how we are very susceptible to emotions, and we pick up on emotions and we transmit emotions and things of that nature. It wasn't until that point that I realized, you know, I'm an empath, and it's so strong to the point of where I could go to a place or touch something and actually have visions of people who may have lived there before, or feel the intense emotions of the place. And that's really when it gets serious, because if there was something bad that happened there, I'll feel that energy. It'll hit me. And there are places I'll go and I'll say, like there's one place in particular not too far from where I live, and it's a dark alley. And I'm telling you, every time I go down there, I have a bad dream about that alley. And I could just feel the energy from the alley. And I said, I don't know what it is about this alley, but something bad happened here years ago. And I know it because I have the visions, I have the dreams, or, you know, some call them nightmares. But there's always something going on. And so what I try to do as much as possible is not go down that alleyway. I try to take a detour. But, you know, when you're an empath, it can be a good thing because you feel the emotions of the people. And one of the things I talked about is the strength of a Pisces. If you, let's just take hypothetically, you're a salesperson in a call center, and you're sitting around a lot of top salesmen and you're not so good. Well, if you're a Pisces or an empath, you pick up on the energy of those top salesmen and it raises your game. You become better, you know? And this is what I've always talked about with the learning institutions, the universities and schools, and that they don't really know what they're doing, because if you have a Pisces, the way to make that Pisces student better is to put them around A students. If they're not performing at a certain level, and this is just Pisces I'm talking about, or empaths, you know, because that energy, we take that in and make that our own. And the negative aspect of that is that you could take in too much information or emotions, because emotions are a language unto themselves, and it can create a lot of confusion, you know, because there's so many emotions vying for your attention. And sometimes if you are around somebody who's very dark and depressed, it will severely impact you and who you are, and it could make you a very depressed person. So you have to be around people who are very positive or negative. You have to be around situations that are like, that are very life affirming. And that's precisely how I am, because I can't be around dark places. I can't be around places where I know there are dark entities or negative entities hanging. I'll feel them. I'll know them. They'll come to me, and I'll have dark thoughts. And Pisces are good chameleons, because we could take on any type of character depending on the person that we're with or the situation that we're at. This is why we would do well if you put us in a very positive environment. We become very positive and we excel. So my point being that when I was telling that story is that when I go through the SAD, the seasonal affective disorder, and I need to perk myself up, I noticed by habit there was something I would always do when I would go outside. And again, it wasn't until recently that I realized, hey, you know, is this why I'm doing this? Because I always thought I was doing it for recreation, just for having fun. And I kind of realized, oh, I'm doing this to spike my emotions, to get into a more positive mood. And I was out with a friend, and we were just walking to a mall to get something to eat. And he actually saw me doing this. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but he saw me doing this, and I don't realize I'm doing it, you know. And he saw me do it over and over again. And then he looked at me, he says, you know why you're doing that? He says, you're doing that for therapy. You're changing, it's helping to change your mood. And when he said that, it was a revelation. It was actually confirmed what I always thought. I said, yeah, I am doing it for that. It's not weird, you know, because it's just something I learned to do to get myself in a more positive state. And he picked up and noticed it right away. Other people probably wouldn't understand what it was, what I was doing, but he noticed it. So, like I said, I'm not going to tell you. If you want to know, just ask me in the comment box, and description box, or sorry, the comment box, and I'll respond and tell you what it is. But it's a great little technique to improve your state of mind, to improve your health, to improve your emotions, you know, and just basically to center you. So let me just take one more spoonful of this chocolate. All right, so what I wanted to talk to you about is the dark world of possession. And it's really not so dark, but it can be dark, you know? So possession is when you, as an individual, invoke a spirit and allow a spirit to come into you. And basically, the spirit possesses you, and it can dictate your actions, it can control your actions, it can give you counseling. That's in a roundabout way. That's possession, or sometimes we call it invoking. There's evoking. We actually evoke a spirit to appear before you, and there's invoking when the spirit comes within you and you invoke the spirit. Now, when we're saying spirit, we have to be very careful about that word, because Western linguistics have used it in different ways. So in ancient cultures, when we talked about spirits, we talked about that meant intelligences, okay, different intelligences. And the energy, like when you pass on, your energy still is there, it still survives, and it transforms into something. All right, so the act of possession means that you are calling upon a certain energy or intelligence to come in you to achieve a certain objective. Now, you'll notice that you've probably seen some footage of me and stuff like that. I've worked with individuals like Daryl Anka Bashar, who channels Bashar, which is an interdimensional being, and Bashar comes through and talks through him to give counseling. Now, that's channeling. That's a little bit different, because the spirit is not really, you know, like taking control of you and directing your actions. And there's a lot of channelers out there. Some, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but watch some of Daryl Anka stuff and Bashar and judge for yourself. So I've worked with him a couple of times, and he's a great guy. He shot some film that now I think is available on Amazon, so you should check that out. But again, the dimensional being is Bashar, and he'll give you the details on the solar system Bashar is from, and what Bashar's people are called, okay? But typically in ancient traditions, and I'm talking about Africa, talking about Greek culture, is that the possession, you would identify an ancestor or a spirit or even a deity you would want to come in to you. And the purpose of that is like it, going back to, again, antiquity, we would be in communal settings or tribal settings where in the circle, we would have a circle, and in the center of the circle would be the priest or priestess, and the spirit would possess them. And then they would get up and they would start talking, giving counsel to the community on could be laws, or it could be on the next season, what to expect in terms of a harvest and things of that nature. Or it could be a past ancestor, you know, talking and communicating with the family member in the community. But one of the things that I think are of real benefit to possession is that you can possess historical figures, you can possess ancestors to come within you and to make you better at something. So if you're a piano player, you could possess or become possessed by the spirit of an ancient musician who will then come into you and make you like a genius piano player, you know, and you'll be at concerts playing, you know. Or if you want to become better at math, you could identify a past ancestor who was a math genius and possess the spirit of that individual and have that individual come through you. Now, what happens, there's a whole process and ritual to doing that. Now, what happens when that spirit comes within you and starts to help you or take control of your body is that your natal personality is displaced and you become that spirit. You are that spirit because the spirit's now within you, and you are taking a back seat of, like, if you're, for example, Sam, you now are not Sam, you're Mozart. Do you understand what I mean? And when people speak to you, Sam will not be speaking, it will be Mozart that will be speaking back to them. Now, it's a very jarring experience because when the deity, the spirit, or whatever comes into you, you will actually feel you losing control, and that you as an individual it's almost like sinking into this hole. And you'll be consciously aware of that spirit in you. You'll feel it, you'll know it, you know. And the possession can take place for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year, for a lifetime. And our ancestors practiced this to gain knowledge and wisdom from the ancient world, and even go into the future and bring back spirits from the future and have those spirits possess them and give them counseling on what to expect in the near future. So that's a little bit about possession. Now, there's a dark side to that. You have to be very careful. This is why this is not practiced so widely. It's because if you're opening up your psychic centers and your spirit to something like that, you are inviting negative entities to come in, and they can come in. So you may think that you may be trying to contact a benevolent spirit, and lo and behold, you know, a demon comes within you, and then you got a big problem right there. That's a big problem. That's actually been known to happen. This is why only like high priests and priestesses practice spirit possession, because if it's not done right, there are entities floating around out there just waiting for a host to go into. So that there's a warning there, you know, to be very careful about how you practice this. But the benefits outweigh any negative thing that can happen, because if you practice this properly, the wisdom and the skill that you can gain from this, you could be a savant, you could be a genius. If you tap into the right energy, the right spirit, it can come into you and teach you all kinds of things and bring knowledge that doesn't exist in this time frame. But it has to be done properly. And you have to prepare for it, because who you are, whether it be Sam, Cindy, Jerry, is going to go deep, deep, deep into another state of consciousness, while the spirit or entity is within you taking control. And that is an agreement you make with the spirit, that it can come into you and it can use your body to perform certain tasks. So that whole thing there is the agreement. And the agreement also has boundaries such as, you know, you're only doing this for a certain period of time. You can't hurt anybody. You know, this is what's going to happen. This is why most of the spirit possessions are done in a very controlled environment, as I was stating before, the communal setting, where there's the community there. And many times the priest or priestess will prepare many days in advance before this ceremony, because everything has to be done right. Because one of the things you'll see if you watch channelers, and I advise that you go on YouTube and look at some of the videos of the channelers. If you don't do this right, you may not actually be possessed, but it may be another aspect of you talking. And you may realize this or you may not realize this. And this is where you get multiple personality disorder. All right, so you have to be very careful, because if it's not performed right, you may think you've contacted the spirit when in essence it's only still you, you know? So you have to go really, really deep, and you have to displace your spirit, your consciousness, to allow that entity to come into you. And believe me, when the entity comes to you, you will definitely know it. I mean, there have been times where I've been trying to, for example, invoke Sebek or Nubis to come into me. And very specific instances, I remember he was coming into me to take control and possess, but I would not let go. I would not take that step back and go down and sink down to allow him to fully 100% possess me, because I wasn't ready for that. And I felt that I didn't know what would happen if he did, and the consequences of that. Because once you do it the first time, it becomes easier to do it the second time. Then you're psychically open for the other entities. And believe me, with an empath like myself or a Pisces, once you do it, you're opening that door. It becomes easier now, and you may not have control over what entity pops within you, what entity comes to you, you know? And this is why you get a lot of people you may see on the street that seem mentally ill, homeless, hobos, that talk to themselves or just seem like just not all together there. They don't have all their marbles. A lot of that can be coming from this, because society, in terms of what we recognize as mental disorders, or we only look at it from a left brain perspective, because mental disorders are either a chemical imbalance or, you know, other things, but we don't look at these things in terms of a metaphysical issue that could be happening, that there could be a real entity within that individual, there could be a real demon within that individual. That becomes, in modern day psychology, oh, that's just spooky new age stuff. That doesn't really, that can't really happen. There's always a logical explanation for it. No, the person is really possessed. But we haven't advanced enough in society to accept the notion that there are other beings out there. And when I mean beings, just go to the roster. We're talking about ancestors. We're talking, because your ancestors guide your life. You should be paying tribute to your ancestors and recognizing them. We have the ancestors. We have deities. We have different spirits or intelligences, you know, genii. Then you have your interdimensional beings, and you may have what we call your angels. So there are a lot of things out there, you know, there are things out there. And if you tune into them with the right vibratory frequency, or you can use mantras or Hakau's word of power, you can vibrate to that frequency where you will attract them. All right. And sometimes you can work with them without the whole possession ritual. But the best way to do it for the full extent of it, to gain the full wisdom and knowledge that that spirit has, is to do the possession ritual, where they come into you and possess you. And you'll actually, if you read our history, is replete with all of these things where you've had people, I think even Nostradamus, where the spirit would come into them and they would start writing things, quatrains or notes about future events that would happen, or past things that would happen, you know, or they would start speaking in different languages, and they would do the research and found it was an actual language, you know, when this person had no knowledge of that type of ancient language. So there is a connection between the present and the past and the future, and the way we can connect with those what Western science call points in time is through the right brain or through spirit possession, because that will allow us to contact those energies or intelligences that still exist. Though your physical body will will end. The energy or the consciousness within you is eternal. It has no beginning and no end. It will always, it has always been and always will be. So those energies don't disappear. They're there, you know? And if they're there, we should be able to tap into it. And I gave the example before of, you know, when we talk about astronomy and study of the stars, we talk about black hole and about how if we're in a ship traveling into a black hole, once you get to the event horizon, you would be stretched, and then you would finally fall in. But the information on who you were that makes up you is retained. So the universe keeps all the information that makes up you. Just like in Star Trek, a transporter, in order for it to beam you from one location to another, it has to have it has to understand patterns. It has to first understand the physical body and break your atoms down, and then reconfigure them to who you were. So, but that's kind of like how the universe does it. It sees you as vibration of particles, and it keeps that information on who you are. Well, again, going back to the intelligences, when all of our great ancestors, like if you want to look at, like, for example, Imhotep, Shaka Zulu, you know, Akhenaten, you know, Pharaoh Hatshepsut, you know, they still exist as energies and intelligences, you know, that we can tap into and get that information. And it's only the problem again that we live in is this Western society and left brain society that really just only looks at things in terms of concrete. It doesn't have the ability to envision anything that has to do with New Age or metaphysical principles. You know, so it can't conceive of that. It's only through the right brain can we gain an understanding of different dimensions, different worlds, different higher states of being. You have to get into the right brain for you to accept those paradigms. For the left brain, in these academic institutions that we have today, they cast out anybody who even proposes things of that nature. You go to a university and study psychology, and you start talking about a template reality, about the fifth dimension and jumping timelines. They will ostracize you and kick you out in a second. Because we live in a corrupt world where they're trying to suppress information, and they know that this exists. And we play word games. And what I mean by that is, if the Egyptians say that Atum, which Akhenaten was referring to the sun, called it Atum, A-T-E-M, is really another word for atom, kind of an atom. So if I'm proposing that there is such things as particles, you know, things break down on a molecular level that you can't see them, they're particles. But if I call it atom and I call another one Ra, and I said together to make up a different type of energy system called Amen Ra, they look at me like I'm crazy. But it's okay for them to say there's the particles, there's a nucleus, it has electrons, neutrons, whatever. But it's okay for them to say that. Even though you can't see those things, even though what I'm saying in terms of Atum and Ra are basically the same thing, but I'm using more of an allegory to communicate that message and that meaning. And part of it is, you know, it's just arrogance on their part, because they want to be the ones to discover everything. They want to be the ones to say, hey, you know what? We have discovered that the world may be a holographic projection, and it may be an illusion. When our ancestors came up with the term Maya, that reality is Maya, an illusion. So again, they're trying to act like they discovered something when we've known it for thousands and thousands of years. And we called it Maya, but now they want to call it holographic. So because the left brain labels and defines things, and because they label it holographic and not Maya, they now claim it's legitimate now, the legitimacy of it. And then they write papers and they get all kinds of awards and accolades behind that. Meanwhile, our ancestors are still looked at as pagan and primitive, all right? So anyway, going back to the whole possession, If you want to dive into this, I would recommend that you take it slowly and start reading some books. And the first thing to do is I say, try a little channeling first and see how that works out for you. But you have to be in a very calm, peaceful state of mind to allow those energies to come within you, all right? And then when you move on to more advanced levels, you will try invoking a spirit, having it possess you. And but you have to prepare for that, and don't do it for long. You want to just have the spirit possess you for a little bit of time, then work up to longer. But have a goal in mind. Let's say, for example, if you want to be a better singer, then research and find spirits or even ancestors or ancient historical figures that were masters in their area, such as singing, mathematics, and then try and contact them and invite them into you to possess you. And then the next step is you would have your book of charms or pen and paper, and when the spirit comes to you, start writing down, because it's going to give you information. So start writing all that down, and then when you come out of it, you're going to realize that what you're going to have is going to be a gold mine. They're going to give you just some wild knowledge, you know what I mean? And going back to the dark world of possession, this is also have to you be very careful, because you'll have the malevolent spirits who will come to you, and they will give you some profound information. It's deep. They'll even help you predict the future. But they're doing it to trick you into working with them. So it may seem like, it's kind of like Star Wars, where Anakin Skywalker was seduced by the dark side because Darth Sidious kept saying, I can bring back your girlfriend. I have the power of life and death, which he really didn't, but he made it seem like he did, and Anakin fell for it. So these dark entities can do that, where they'll, they say, you can work with me. And actually that kind of happened to me at one point. And though I was working with this entity, I actually knew it was a dark entity. But I said, well, let me work with it and see how this works out. And lo and behold, what I found out, it was literally sucking the energy from me. I felt weak. I was having crazy dreams, and I couldn't sleep. And I realized what it was doing, it was like a parasite pulling the energy from me, and it was feeding off that energy. So I had to end that relationship. I said, okay, no, this is not healthy. This is not working out. What you're giving me stuff, but it's coming at a great cost to my health and my sanity here, And then it would play little games with me where I'd be sleeping, I'd wake up, and I would hear like lots of voices screaming in agony and pain. And I was like, oh, so because it wants me fearful, it wants to feed off that energy. So I definitely had to deal with that right away. So you may be working with those dark entities and you think you can control it, or you think that you're gaining a lot from it. But believe me, it's doing something behind the scenes to undermine who you are. That's what they do, you know what I mean? But understand, because we are Cometians and we're whole brain thinkers, that those things, demons, these entities, have a place that they were created for a reason. So allow them to do their job, but they cannot be interfering with your life, because it's like a shark. A shark has its place in the water. It hunts. If you pull a shark out of the water, or you go into the shark's domain and you get bitten or eaten, that's your fault. Leave them their area, their domain, let them do what they do, and you stay on land. You know what I mean? That's how things are supposed to work. A place for everything, and everything in its place. The trouble is that when you're pulling those demons out and you're trying to work with them on a physical fourth dimensional level, this is not where they're supposed to be. And even if you realize in the story of Asar and Set, when Haru was able to defeat Set, one of the things that Haru did was not to kill Set. Because, again, whereas Cometians, we understand that there's no such thing as evil, that everything serves a purpose. So Haru cast Set to the underworld, and Set had a job of clearing the path for the barge. And the barge is this boat that traverses the heavens, or the heavens and the underworld. And Set had to clear the way for this boat so it could sail along. So, and Set was good at doing that. So everything has its place. In Christian tradition, which is left brain and is polarized, oh, it's evil, cast that away, don't work with that, it's evil. No, it serves a purpose. And We shouldn't try to get rid of it or destroy it. Allow it to do its job where and when it's supposed to be doing it, you know, because that is what cosmologics is about. Everything has a position, and everything works together to support the whole, to sustain the whole. If you take one thing away, then the whole crumbles. It ceases to be. This is why we're living on a planet where you have a small group with a very small, very powerful group who think that they can just kill off races of people, destroy the land, and there will be no consequences. No, there are consequences, because we live in an ecosystem that has a dependence upon everything. Dependence on the insects, dependence on the birds, you know, and dependence on light beings that we can't even see, you know, because we only have a very limited sight into the spectrum. We can't see all things, but animals can have a broader perspective on the field of light. So there we go. And also, sorry, in addition to the demons and stuff, there are also light beings, very, very benevolent beings that will come into you and assist you and work with you. But the light beings are very high, they're high consciousness. So for them to come and work with you, you have got to be morally upright. You have to be ma'at, you know, because elsewise they won't come and work with you. And you can't ask a light being to come to you and give you information to beat somebody. Like, you can't say, give me information on how the numbers to the lottery. Give me information so I can play roulette and win. The light beings will not do that, you know, because they're here to impart wisdom onto you. They're on that Tahuti level, that wisdom level, you know. And if you want to help mankind or womankind, and you have altruistic goals, then the light beings can work with you and come into you and possess you, and it can be a really beautiful relationship, especially if you're a male and you have a female light being that comes to you. That could be a relationship that's really awesome. And if you're a woman, you can have a male light being coming to you, and you can work with that light being and have a really prosperous relationship. And there's things that go on with that type of relationship that I don't have time to go into, but that could be a kind of spiritual mate, you know. But I don't want to touch on that right now. So rest assured, possession is a great way. In fact, I even prescribe to teach your children this, and you can start your children out in learning how to become possessed by a spirit on a basic and fundamental level. When, say, if you're a hockey player and when you seem to be in the flow and you're doing really well and you just feel everything's going for you and you're gaining lots of points, that is a type of spirit that came into you. You know, Lady Luck they talk about, that's really a spirit that comes to you and then the spirit leaves, you know, and you can feel that, you know, you're like, oh, man, things are really working out for me because that spirit is in you now and it's taken over. And you'll know when you have a type of spirit, because we have coined it the flow, or in the flow. And this is when you kind of lose, I don't want to use the word lose consciousness, but you're no longer conscious of time. Time just flows by. You don't even realize, wow, 3 hours passed? That is when you have allowed a type of spirit to come into you, take control, and guide and dictate the actions. Because, and also too, when you're walking on the street and you don't remember walking 2 or 3 blocks, you know, like, how did I get here? I cannot for the life of me recall walking or turning a corner or doing anything or crossing the street. Sometimes, not all the times, that is a spirit that has come to you, and you were so enveloped in that spirit that you can't remember what happens. And, you know, so, but again, you don't want to be totally open and receptive 100%, because then something can come into you and you can't close that off. Your psychic defense doesn't work, and now all kinds of things are coming into you. You find yourself walking on the street talking to yourself and going mentally insane. That happens to a lot of people. That has happened to a lot of people, and we've yet to properly diagnose that in the academic world, because they don't want to diagnose that, because that opens the door to them having to admit that there is the metaphysical, that New Age is onto something, you know what I mean? So that's all for now. I hope that you like this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them. I definitely will respond. If you hit please hit like. If you like this video, hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel, please, to get more videos. And upcoming, I'm going to try to open a Patreon account so I can really give you guys some special instructional videos through the Patreon account. And that'll be really, really deep instructions and step-by-step guides and all kinds of cool stuff we'll be offering through Patreon. And those are only for the Patreon members if you decide to become a member of that, which you should, because you know why? We have chocolate ice cream. All the Patreon members have chocolate ice cream, you know? Well, here's the bottom line, right? We are living in a freaking crazy world. The people who control this world are psychopaths. You and I are God men, God women, but we have forgotten how to use our power, how to come into a total knowledge of ourselves as Osarians or Asar. So we have to get back on this path and discover our power, discover who we are. And let me tell you something, it is a wonderful journey. We're living in interesting times because it's like an onion. You're peeling back different layers and you're discovering more and more and more. Same with Alice in Wonderland. You're going down that rabbit hole. The only thing is you have to decide how deep do you want to go. Sometimes it can be frightening because you're learning new things about the world that you didn't think the world was this way. You know, when I started to realize, and Jordan Maxwell said it right, he says, nothing is what they tell you. Nothing is what you see is not what's really going on, because everything is veiled, everything is hidden behind the curtain. And when you pull back that curtain slowly, you start to see the reality that's behind everything. And yes, it's frightening, but at the same time, it will empower you and show you your true powers. You're like a Jedi master and you don't even realize it. There's things that you can do that's just so wonderful. Unfortunately, we weren't born into a priesthood that can initiate us into all of these different powers that we have. So we have to learn it on our own, or learn it through a mentor or sage or teacher. And possession is a great way to learn it, you know. This is how you pull information from the Akashic records. You re-teach yourself, because obviously if you're on this path, you were on it before in a past life, you're just continuing it. So you're re-teaching yourself this mystical knowledge, and you're just going back on that path again and learning more and more. And with each incarnation, every time you're born, you learn more and more. And until 100, 200 incarnations, you become Osir. And then you help guide humanity in the right direction. You become a beacon of light for people looking for light like you were. And then you'll be able to counsel and teach them. And then that's how we'll win out against the dark forces, the Illuminati, because we aren't going to fight them military-wise. We're not going to fight them through protest, because you can't win that way. We're going to fight them through becoming the best versions of ourselves that we can. And the light within us will shine, and that light will contact the interdimensional beings, the light beings, and light beings will come to assist us. And ancestors will come to assist us. And then you become very powerful. And then it's a new ball game. Everything changes then, and you become a force to be reckoned with. So this is Kasaf Ma'akeperu. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on my next broadcast. Amen Ra.